Hey man, I just want to make a quick video of some basic music stuff and bass stuff for you because you came up to me right on Sunday and were like, I don't know how to read this. And I totally get that. I totally want to give you the tools to not feel overwhelmed, to still feel like you can be a part of this team, um, and have fun and learn some new stuff about music. So I just want to make a video here with a couple different things, and hopefully this will help you figure some of these new things out. I know they're new. I know it might feel overwhelming, but you are doing great, and I'm super excited that you are a part of this team. And some of the stuff might take a while to learn, but that's okay because music is like a lifelong thing to learn. So don't feel bad or don't feel pressured if you don't know what's happening. If this video, if you still have a lot of questions after this video, you probably will, just let me know. I am happy to either make more videos or we can meet sometime on a more consistent basis, kind of before or after practice or whatever. Maybe not after, or another time during the week, maybe at school or something. But anyways, that's all a preface to this. So hopefully this helps, and hopefully I can get some graphics up on the screen as well that will help you visualize some of this stuff as well. So I've got notes. So the first main thing I want to talk about is just explain the different styles of sheet music that we use in worship. And they all are great, and they all have different places in worship. And I wanted to explain that a little bit. So the first type, the type that we use the most often and that you have copies of, is what we call chord charts. You can see that right there, and all my scribbles, we'll come back to that later. Chord charts are just pieces of music that show the chords that are being played and where they're played according to the lyrics, not necessarily on like a staff as we're used to, but where they are according to their lyrics. And this can be a big learning jump if you've only ever played like band or orchestral music, and that's okay. But the reason why we use chord charts a lot is, one, because they are simplified, so we can make notes, like we can write notes easier, we have more space for that. But two is that it is a little bit more flexible to look at and to use for worship. Because if you think of like a traditional orchestral piece, you have, 4, 5, 6 pieces of paper in front of you with music, and it's very directed, right? Like the music tells you exactly where to go, exactly when to go there. And that is wonderful. That sometimes we need that in worship, but other times we approach creating a song or playing a song with more flexibility. So we want the flexibility to be able to say, hey, instead of going to like the chorus here, let's go to the bridge here, or let's do the bridge instead of 1 time, let's do the bridge 4 times. So essentially, in music terms, chord charts make it easier to rearrange and add repeat signs wherever we want to, without having to reprint music or anything like that. So I hope that makes sense. Just if you look at the chord chart a little bit more, you'll see my scribbles, which you can ignore for now. You can see the letters that are on there, that I'll explain in a little bit. And then sometimes you'll see where that instrumental thing is. And instrumentals on chord charts are shown by bars or measures that you see there. Each bar, each distance between 2 lines, so like right there, represents 1 measure. So that's similar to traditional orchestral music. And then whatever is in that bar is what you play for that measure. So we'll go over that in a second as well. So that's the first type, is chord charts. The second type of music that we use is lead sheets. So lead sheets look like this. Lead sheets are usually just the melody written out on a traditional staff. And most of them also, oops, I can't hold this at the same time. Most of them also have the chords written above it. So you see like there's a C there, there's, what is that, an F? F right there. So you have, it's like a combination of a chord chart showing the chords, but now it's also showing the melody on a traditional staff. So that is another form. And then the final form that we use is the vocal kind of illustration, the vocal sheets here. And this is exactly what you would think it is. This is 3 to 4 part harmonies and melody written out. And it's more of a traditional piece of music. But even on this, you can see the little letters here, the chords on top. We very rarely use the last two in student worship, just because they get a little bit more complicated. They expect people to be able to read music off the bat. But it also sometimes makes it harder to be flexible, like I was bringing up before. So we want to, as much as possible, become familiar with chord charts for now, and then we can work with the other stuff later. So let's talk about how we read chord charts, and then we'll talk about what that means for bass. So as I was talking about before, chord charts show you the chord placement, so what chord they are, and then where they are in relation to the lyrics. So as you can see here, we got like a C, and if you see that's C, because they're both C, that's funny. You can see that the C is printed right before the start of this verse, these lyrics right here. So right before the Lord bless you, you play a C. This is easier understood when you're listening to the recording. You can hear that chord being played a beat before the lyrics kick in. And so it's easier to sometimes hear it. And then when you're looking at this piece of paper, you'll be able to hear it and see it, and it'll make more sense as well. This is a bad example because there's no combination slash chords, but sometimes you'll see on chord charts, there'll be like a C/G, which basically means that the top part of the chord should be a C, and then the bottom should be a G. So on keys, for example, one way to play that would be a C with your right hand on top, and then a G with your bass hand on the other. Most of the times we won't worry about that, but when you're on bass, you want to play the lower note. So whatever's on bottom of that slash you want to play. And well, we can go over that when you see that in a piece of music. But typically a bass itself, like a bass guitar in worship context, is used primarily to play what we call the root note. Not sure if you're familiar with that term or not, but a root note is basically just the notes that the chord is named after, right? So a chord is made up of different notes altogether, and the root note, as we call it, is the foundation. It's the notes that the chord is named after. So for example, if the chord chart says we play a C chord, you on bass would play a C note. If the chord chart says we play an A flat, you play an A flat. For now, we can ignore the major, the minors, the twos, all of the fancy chord stuff that comes in later, we just ignore for now. All you have to worry about is playing the root note. So if the chord chart says you play a C, that's where you play a C note. If the chord chart says you play an F, you play an F note where it's placed. So I hope that makes sense. That'll make sense as you practice more. Let's talk about how to find notes on the bass guitar on a chord chart. So I should try to put up a visual right down below, which you should see all of the notes of the bass fret laid out for you. I think Heidi might have talked with you a little bit on Sunday, I'm not quite sure. But the bass is laid out in such a way where you have a piece of paper up here too. We have your open strings tuned to E on 4th string, so that's the lowest. And then A is your 3rd string right there. And then D is your 2nd open string. And then your 1st open string at the very highest string is a G. So open strings, you got E, A, D, G. And you can see in that illustration below that that's all the way in the open positions. So how do we find out where notes are on the fretboard? Use this illustration, and I can send it to you as a PDF as well, and go through the chord chart. And if you can read my scribbles, you can see what I did here. Is by the C, I wrote 3rd string, 3rd fret. So what that means is that on the bass guitar, on a 4-string bass guitar, in order to find a C note, I want to find the 3rd string. So remember, 4th is the closest to you, 1st is the closest to your leg. So the 3rd string is 1, 2, 3. And then, so this is the string that you want to play. And then the 3rd fret is marked by the first dot on your guitar. So 1, 2, 3. So right here, I'm playing the 3rd string, 3rd fret. And that's a C chord, or a C note, I should say. The next one I'm just looking at the blessing right here, is an F. So an F, according to the chart down below, the closest one to open is on the 4th string, so your lowest string, on the 1st fret right here, right? So you go from an open E to a 1st fret F, right? So we got our C, 3rd string, 3rd fret, and then we got our F, which is 4th string, 1st fret, right? So the first step you're gonna wanna take to looking at a chord chart and translating it to bass is to go through the whole sheet and write those down. You can write it literally on a piece of paper like I did. Find the string and the fret number of each of those notes. Ideally, you want to find them all between open string and 5th fret. You can find them up here, but at this point, there's not really a need to. I just want you to get the basics down. So try to find all the notes within 5th fret and an open position here. That'll just make it easier. So once you've gone through your sheet music and your chord chart and done all that, the second thing is that you want to start practicing switching between the notes that you've already put on your sheet. So let's just take that C and F, for example. So C is our 3rd string, 3rd fret here. And then F is our 4th string, so the lowest one, and then our 1st fret. Right? So the first step to learning is to just feel what it feels like to switch between 2 notes. So we'll just take the C and the F. C, F. C, F. And so I know that might seem a little boring at first, but trust me, it's gonna help you feel where the notes are rather than have to think, okay, where's my 3rd my 3rd string, where's my 3rd fret? One way to make this a little bit more fun is to grab a metronome and set it to maybe a slower BPM, a slower speed, and try to switch between each note on the one of every measure. So I typically set it to 4/4. Let's see if I can do that, 4/4. And then I'll just start at 70 BPM because that's a little slower. But I'm just gonna try to switch between the C and the F on the one of every measure. So, I don't know if you can hear it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I go to the F. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know that is it might seem a little boring at first compared to a whole song, but doing that over and over and then speeding up as you get more comfortable with switching is going to help you feel more comfortable when it does come time to play a song. let's see. So step number one, write down all of the string positions and fret positions of the root notes that you need on your sheet music. So use that illustration that I put down there. Step number two is to practice switching between those notes. You can pick two, you can pick three. One of the great things about modern worship music is that a lot of the times the notes are repeated. So for example, in the blessing, C, F, C, G, like those four notes in a row are repeated a lot of the times. Or for the chorus, it's A, F, C, G, A, F, C, G, A, F, C, G. So if you get used to switching between those notes at any speed, it's going to be easier to play the song when you get to that point. So after that, once you got to that point, and that might take a while, and that's totally okay, but that's foundational to learning. Once you've done all of that, you can start to practice like with a YouTube soundtrack or a Spotify soundtrack, and just try to play along with that. This gets a little tricky when we talk about keys, because sometimes the keys that we play in are different than the keys of a lot of the recordings. So if you try to do this and you're like, oh, this note doesn't sound right with what they're playing on the recording, let me know and I can try to find a recording of that song in that key, whatever you might be working on. But that'll help you kind of hear the song over and over again and try to hit those notes, even if it means that you just pick one note per verse that you want to hit spot on, or two notes per verse you want to hit spot on, instead of trying to do every single note. That is helpful as well. And then the last way to practice, I know this video is getting a little longer than I thought, but that's okay, is to practice with a metronome instead of a recording. So we just talked about using metronomes to figure out how to switch between positions. We can then take that and apply it to a whole song. This step requires you to know the song a little bit more. So hopefully you're listening to the songs even when you're not practicing bass for them, so they don't get stuck in your head. But one of the final steps to practicing on your own before you come to band practice is to be able to play the song through with a metronome without a recording. And so I'll just give you a demo of what that looks like for the blessing. So you hear the metronome going, and I'm just going to play the first verse, right? So I know what the blessing sounds like in my head. I've played it a lot of times. You want to get that song stuck in your head as well. But then once you've got the metronome going, just practice playing through the first verse, right? So it'll be, the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Lord, turn his face toward you and give you peace. Right? So you don't even have to sing with it, but having a metronome play while you are playing the root notes helps you keep on time. It helps you kind of keep track of where you are in the song. So I know that was a lot. If you need to watch this video a couple times to understand it, that's good too. And just let me know if you have questions or thoughts. And we can work through some of this together. So you are awesome. I'm super thankful that you are on the team, and hopefully this helps. So see you later.